If you want to help out and support the channel, there are a few things you can do. Go check out Flipside Gaming and use the promo code VOIDMAGE in all caps. This will get you 10% off all orders $10 or more. And if you go shopping on tcgplayer.com, go use my affiliate link in the description below. That way all purchases you make will go towards helping the channel. And lastly, go check out my Patreon. It's a more direct way that you can help the channel while also getting some more interaction. I appreciate all of your support. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Commander Deck Tech video, this time for new patron James Robinson. Welcome aboard. For January, he wanted me to do a deck tech on Tsabo Tavoc. If you're unfamiliar, Tsabo Tavoc from Invasion is a 7-mana Rakdos-colored 7/4 legendary horror. She has first strike and protection from legendary creatures. Keep in mind that's what they meant by legends, so whenever you see it referred to as legends, they're just talking about legendary creatures. I bring this up because some people might confuse it with legendary permanents. She also has an ability of 2 black and tap her to destroy target legend. It can't be regenerated. This is very similar to Empress Galena. In fact, they're from the same set. And what makes her very cool in Commander as an option is because legendary creatures are all around this format. That's sort of the whole point, right? If you can take down an opponent's commander, you can make it a lot easier on yourself. The main downside though with Tsabo Tavoc is that she is super expensive and in colors where it's realistically not easy to get her out multiple times. Once you pay the first commander tax, that's 9 mana, and she's really only useful if you're able to use her ability right, so expect to invest even more mana. For that reason, when it comes to lands, I recommend playing a lot more than you think, so about 38, just because if you're not able to play your commander, you're typically not going to do too well in a commander game. We do have other ways of winning, we have other ways of punishing our opponents, which is a common theme in Rakdos, but we really want to get her out there. We want to start killing our opponent's commanders. Now as for the land base itself, it's your typical mana fixing. You have dual lands that tap for red and black, but we want some utility, I suppose. So let's play Bojuka Bog, entering the battlefield, going to exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Now, as I mentioned, we want to get Tsabo out there, so our mana ramp is going to be mostly artifacts and creatures that are capable of giving us a lot more mana. We have our 1-drop cards, our Expedition Map, our Soul Ring. It's just nice to not have to worry about mana. Arcane Signet, Mind Stone, Rakdos Signet, Talisman of Indulgence are all 2-mana rocks, which seems to be the standard for Commander. We're also playing Rakdos Key Rune and Worn Power Stone for 3 mana. The Key Rune can also help us out, give us some creature presence if we're lacking, and trust me, in Rakdos you do lack some creature presence. Thran Dynamo and Gilded Lotus are going to tap for 3 mana each, Gilded giving us the colored mana. And in creature form, we do have awesome cards like Dockside Extortionist and Burnished Heart. These seem to be pretty good. I don't like playing Solemn Simulacrum in every deck. It just seems a lot easier to get to 3 mana and then crack a Burnished Heart the following turn than to just hope you get a 4th land drop. Now the deck does a little bit of everything you would expect out of a red-black deck. You're going to see some group slug, you're going to see some good control, some removal. So let's just start it off here with our creatures. Tsabo is not really kind, so we're going to try to not be so kind to our opponents. Harsh Mentor punishes our opponents if they want to activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or lands. Deals 2 damage to that player. Rampaging Ferocidon, we're not a heavy creature deck, so we shouldn't be hurt by it as much. Players can't gain life, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. Royal Assassin taps to destroy target tapped creature, so it adds a little bit more removal alongside with Tsabo. So if our opponents have a creature and they want to attack with it, we can then tap Royal Assassin and destroy that creature. Synth Prodder is a good card advantage card. At the beginning of our upkeep, we reveal the top card of our library. Any opponent may have us put that card into our graveyard. If a player does, Synth Prodder deals damage equal to that card's converted mana cost to that player. If they don't, then you just put it into your hand. So if they don't want that card to go to your hand, giving you an extra card on your turn, they're going to have to be dealt some damage. Vial Smasher the Fierce, whenever you cast your first spell each turn, Vial Smasher deals damage equal to that spell's converted mana cost to an opponent chosen at random. And one of the benefits of playing a higher CMC commander is that 7 damage is going to be dealt to someone, and it's going to hurt. We also have Zancha Sleeper Agent, a really fun staple in these group slug decks. Just give it to someone you really want to hurt, like in a game of Archenemy. Pick on whoever's ahead. Since we have a bunch of mana ramp, it shouldn't be hard dumping all of it into this kind of ability. It's also a good card draw for everyone else at the table. Zuzu the Punisher in creature form, the Ankh of Mishra ability, whenever a land enters the battlefield, deals 2 damage to that land's controller. Really hurts the land decks. It's also kind of an anti-meta strategy, so we don't want to be nice to decks you see all the time. Archfiend of Depravity also controls people's boards, a lot of token decks, a lot of decks where you want to assemble a board and then just Craterhoof Behemoth. We don't want to let that happen, so we want to keep them to 2 creatures. Indulgent Tormentor, going to kind of be like Sin Prodder. You draw a card unless target opponent sacks a creature or pays 3 life. We also don't want our opponents to attack us, so we're playing cards like Dread. Whenever a creature deals damage to you, destroy it, and when Dread is put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into its owner's library. This isn't the only card that's going to do something like this, but we'll get to that later when we talk about our enchantments. Obnixilis, again, sort of an anti-meta card. If you're playing against more competitive decks, I don't think this deck's going to do too bad. Whenever an opponent searches their library, that player sacrifices a creature and loses 10 life, which is so punishing because in a lot of those same decks, they could be paying a lot of life for things like Ad Nauseam, and they may not be able to afford whatever else they want to do to win the game. Also really nice if you're able to kill a bunch of creatures because it gets a +1/+1 counter for each one. And Karavek the Merciless is an absolute powerhouse if he's left alone. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, Karavek deals damage to target creature or player equal to the spell's converted mana cost. You could choose any target, so it doesn't really have to be the same player. I like the versatility of that. I like the politics of that. If an opponent has a powerful board state, you could just focus on their creatures. If not, you can just grind away at life totals. Sheoldred, of course, is going to keep your opponents in check, forcing them to sacrifice a creature on their upkeep, also letting you get one of your creatures back. We only have 17 of them, so it's pretty nice if we're able to do that. Archfiend of Despair, your opponents can't gain life, and like a wound reflection at the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life that player lost this turn. Very powerful if combined with some other cards in the deck like Havoc Festival. Emrakul the Promised End, not the only turn steal effect that we have in here either, but like I mentioned, this is not going to be a deck about making friends. We're not being friendly with our opponents at all, and Emrakul can be quite nasty. We have a couple planeswalkers that are going to go along with the group slug theme. Angrath the Flame Chained. That +1 is so underrated. Each opponent has to discard a card and lose 2 life. If you're able to get to the alt, then you have another way to drain your opponent's life totals, but that +1 is enough for me. The -3 does give you a way to active treason a creature. It's pretty nice, but not super powerful for a loyalty ability. And Chandra Awakened Inferno can't be countered, so you're able to get off that first ability, giving each opponent an emblem that deals 1 damage to them during their upkeep. So if left alone, if you're able to get this +2 off multiple times, that is so deadly in combination with other cards we have. We have some good enchantments that are going to go along with the group slug theme, but we're starting it off here with Phyrexian Arena. I think it's a good solid enchantment for card draw, drawing an additional card and losing a life. We don't have the best card draw in here other than those other creatures I showed you, so if we have something that can sit on the field like this for multiple turns, it's going to help us keep a full hand, which isn't always easy to do in these colors. Leyline of Combustion is a really nice card to have starting off the game, preventing your opponents from just getting rid of all of your permanents. If they try to do it, they're going to be dealt damage, which is pretty nice. Absolutely the bane of targeted removal here. We have Mana Barbs, kind of like Zuzu the Punisher. We want to hurt land decks. We want to hurt decks where they have nothing but mana to spend. This is a pretty symmetrical card, but again, a lot of those decks that want to get off to a big start, this can slow them down quite a bit. We have Marchesa's Decree and Revenge of Ravens. Both are going to hurt our opponents if they want to attack us. Revenge of Ravens gives us some life gain, while Marchesa's Decree gives us some card draw. Mogis, God of Slaughter, is a really nice card, in addition to a lot of our other group slug cards. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, deals 2 damage to that player unless they sacrifice a creature. And similar to Dread, we have no mercy. Whenever a creature successfully deals damage to you, destroy it. We're not running a lot of creatures, and our board presence is going to be quite underwhelming, so we want to hurt our opponents if they try to attack us. Stranglehold, your opponents can't search libraries, and if they would begin an extra turn, they skip that turn instead. There are a lot of annoying decks out there where all they want to do is take extra turns. This shuts them down completely, while also nullifying tutors. Tainted Aether, very good at snuffing out combos. Whenever a creature comes into play, its controller sacrifices a creature or land. There are so many combos where it's about infinite ETBs, infinite mana with Deadeye Navigator and Palinchron, for instance. It's going to be very difficult for those kinds of decks to wiggle out of that. Painful Quandary, whenever an opponent casts a spell, they lose 5 life unless they discard a card. Again, a very good anti-meta card. A lot of Storm decks that cast a bunch of spells, they're going to have to pay for doing that. Havoc Festival, players can't gain life, and at the beginning of each player's upkeep, they lose half their life rounded up. So this, in combination with Archfiend of Despair, is pretty much going to kill off our opponents. And Captive Audience, you're going to single a player out when you play this, but it's still so powerful. There's 3 modes and they have to choose all of them. Their life total becomes 4, they discard their hand. Each opponent creates 5 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. While it's by no means a death sentence, 3 turns is a long time, but it's still pretty powerful. And finishing off the deck, we have some good sorceries and some instants. Scheming Symmetry and Demonic Tutor, very good cheap tutors. The less you have to pay to search up a specific card from your deck, the better off you're going to be. Vandal Blast is a very good removal card for artifacts. A lot of powerful artifact decks as well as land decks, so you have a card here that you can search up specifically to hurt those decks. Torment of Hailfire, a lot of mana in our deck that we're capable of making, so aside from playing Tsabo, we have cards like this that make it worth it. Last One Standing and Damnation, good board wipes, 4 mana or less. Disrupt Decorum, goading all of our opponent's creatures, is such a powerful thing to do, and this is quite the underrated card, but it belongs in a lot of chaotic red decks. As well as Group Slug, it keeps the attention off of you for at least a turn cycle. As far as creatures go, they can't attack you, which is pretty cool. Siphon Mind is good card draw. Each other player discards a card and you draw a card for each card discarded. Forcing Discard is so good. And again, it's one of those underrated things in Commander that people take for granted, which is why we're also playing Skullrend. Deals 2 damage to each opponent and those players each discard 2 cards at random. While it doesn't give you card draw like Siphon Mind, 2 cards discarded at random is ridiculously good. So many hands are ruined if they have to discard 2 cards. Making it random means that they could discard the 2 cards they really want in their hand. You take that decision making away from them. Deadly Tempest is another good board wipe that I think goes unnoticed for a lot of decks like these. You destroy all creatures, each player loses life equal to the number of creatures he or she controlled that were destroyed this way. Not super anti-meta, but again, you've seen a lot of decks that can create a bunch of creature tokens. We have Cruel Entertainment and Worst Fears. I mentioned with Emrakul that we have more cards that do this. Cruel Entertainment is where you choose 2 opponents. You don't want to choose yourself because then your opponent can manipulate you. It's much more fun to watch 2 opponents drive each other crazy. Worst Fears is pretty much just the 8 mana version of a Mindslaver, which for fairness I didn't put in here, but let's just say for 8 mana, if this resolves, you should be able to take control of someone's turn. It also exiles itself, so it's a lot more fair. Blasphemous Act probably being one of the best board wipes in red, and also one of the cheapest too. You have awesome cost reduction. And the final 5 cards of the deck are instants. We have the good old Rakdos Charm, so versatile. Also great anti-meta card. I know I've been saying that a lot this video, but so many annoying decks fool around with the graveyard, so many annoying decks can have a large creature count. This is a card that can single-handedly deal with both of those decks. Terminate, 2 mana, destroy target creature, can't be regenerated. Bedevil, destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Versatile 3 mana removal spell, this is pretty good. And Chaos Warp, being one of my favorites because you could do any target permanent and have to shuffle it back into their deck. You run the risk of them getting it back, but it's a pretty small chance. And Sudden Spoiling is pretty good because it takes away things like Indestructible that would normally handcuff our Tsabo. We want to be effective with her, we want to kill our opponent's creatures. Split Second means that it can't be responded to by most things, so all around very good removal spells, very good anti-meta cards. But anyway guys, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you think about Tsabo Tavoc. Thanks again James Robinson for being a new patron. Really enjoyed doing this deck. Not the easiest to do because she is an older legendary creature. There's not high synergy here, so I just decided to go with what is already popular in red and black, and that is Group Slug. You all have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you next video. Just wanted to say thanks to the patrons who are supporting me on patreon.com. Go check it out. There are different tiers with their own rewards. One of them is having your name in the credits of my videos. I know it's not much, but it's something that I can do to show my appreciation. Thanks again, and have a good day.